My name is Zephyrine Odessa Blanchard. I am 66 years old. I have lived a life full of struggle and sacrifice. I have worked my fingers to the bone. I have given everything I have to my children. And I have learned, the hard way, that sometimes the people you love the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. Let me tell you about my son, Kenton. Kenton was my firstborn, my pride and joy. The child I dreamed about for years before he was finally placed in my arms. I raised him alone after his father walked out when Kenton was just 3 years old. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. I went without food so he could eat. I wore worn-out shoes so he could have new ones for school. I gave Kenton everything. Everything I had and everything I did not have. And how did he repay me? He blocked my bank account, the account that held my life savings, the account that was supposed to carry me through my final years. He blocked it and waited for me to come crawling to him, begging for mercy. But I did not beg. Let me tell you about the moment that changed everything. It was a Thursday afternoon. I had just finished my shift at the community center where I volunteered 3 days a week. I was tired but happy. I had spent the day helping elderly folks like myself, playing cards and sharing stories. I stopped at the grocery store on my way home. I needed bread, milk, and a few other things. Nothing fancy, just the basics to get through the week. When I got to the register, I handed the cashier my debit card. The same card I had used for 15 years without a single problem. The cashier swiped it. She frowned. "I am sorry, ma'am. Your card has been declined." I blinked. That cannot be right. There should be plenty of money in that account. She swiped it again. Same result. "Declined. Do you have another form of payment?" I did not. I had left my other cards at home. I was confused and embarrassed. The people in line behind me were starting to whisper. I do not understand," I stammered. "There must be some mistake." The cashier looked at me with pity. "Maybe you should call your bank, ma'am." I left the store without my groceries. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. What was happening? I drove straight home and called the bank. That was when I learned the truth. "Mrs. Blanchard, I see here that your account has been frozen," the customer service representative said. "Frozen? Why, by whom?" "According to our records, the freeze was initiated by the joint account holder, a Mr. Kenton Blanchard." Joint account holder. Kenton. My mind raced back to 3 years ago. Kenton had asked me to add his name to my account. He said it was for emergencies. He said it would make things easier if something happened to me. He said it was just a precaution. I trusted him. He was my son. Of course I trusted him. And now he had used that access to freeze my account, to lock me out of my own money, my savings, my social security, everything. "Can you unfreeze it?" I asked desperately. "I am afraid not, ma'am. Since Mr. Blanchard is listed as a joint holder with full privileges, we cannot override his decision without his consent." "But it is my money. I earned that money." "I understand, ma'am, but legally both parties have equal control over a joint account. I am sorry." She was not sorry. She was just doing her job. But I was the one left with nothing. I hung up the phone and sat in my kitchen, staring at the wall. My son had stolen my money. My own flesh and blood had left me with nothing. I tried to call Kenton. His phone went straight to voicemail. I tried again, same result. I sent him text messages, no response. Finally, I drove to his house. A beautiful 4-bedroom home in a nice neighborhood. A home I had helped him buy. I had given him the down payment 5 years ago, $30,000 from my savings. I knocked on the door, no answer. I knocked again harder, still nothing. I was about to leave when the door opened, but it was not Kenton standing there. It was his wife, Nicolette. Nicolette was a beautiful woman with light skin and long, straight hair. She came from a wealthy family. She had never worked a day in her life, and from the moment Kenton brought her home, she had looked at me like I was dirt beneath her expensive shoes. "Mrs. Blanchard," she said coolly, "what are you doing here?" "I need to speak to Kenton. It is urgent." Kenton is not available. Nicolette, please. Something has happened to my bank account. I cannot access my money. A small smile crossed Nicolette's face. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who was enjoying my suffering. I know, she said. Kenton froze your account. I stared at her. You knew, and you did not warn me. Warn you, Nicolette laughed. Mrs. Blanchard, it was my idea. The ground seemed to shift beneath my feet. Your idea? Why? What did I ever do to you? Nicolette leaned against the doorframe, crossing her arms. You exist. That is what you did. You are always calling, always visiting, always interfering. Kenton needs to focus on his family, his real family, me and our children, not his elderly mother who cannot stop meddling in our lives. I am his mother. And I am his wife. I come first now. She smiled that cold smile again. We froze your account because we knew it would get your attention. We knew you would come running. And now that you are here, I have a message for you. She leaned closer. Stay away from us. Stop calling. Stop visiting. Stop expecting Kenton to take care of you. You are not our responsibility anymore. Tears were burning in my eyes. Where is Kenton? I want to hear this from him. Kenton agrees with me. He is just too soft to say it to your face. That is why I am saying it for him. She started to close the door. Wait, I grabbed the door. What about my money? You cannot just take my money. We did not take anything. We just made it inaccessible. If you want your account unfrozen, you will have to beg. Get on your knees and beg us to give you back what you think is yours. She smiled one last time. But honestly, Mrs. Blanchard, I do not think your begging will change anything. We have plans for that money. Kenton's inheritance, we call it. He might as well enjoy it now instead of waiting for you to die. She slammed the door in my face. Now, before I continue, I need to ask you something. Are you with me? Are you ready to hear what happened next? If you are, I need you to do something for me right now. I need you to subscribe to this channel. Press that subscribe button. It helps me know that you care about stories like this. Stories about real people facing real struggles. Also, press the like button. That thumbs up tells me you are enjoying this story, and it helps other people find this channel too. And do not forget the notification bell, that little bell icon. When you turn it on, you will get a message every time I post a new story. You will never miss anything. One more thing. Drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from. Are you from Baltimore, Cleveland, Phoenix? Maybe you are watching from Trinidad or South Africa or the UK. I want to know who is here with me. I want to build a community of people who understand that family is not always what it should be. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. Let me tell you how my son became the man who could freeze his own mother's bank account and sleep soundly at night. Kenton was born on a cold January morning in 1982. His father, Reginald, was there for the birth. He held Kenton in his arms and cried. He promised to be the best father in the world. He promised to love us forever. Reginald was good at making promises. He was not so good at keeping them. By the time Kenton was 3 years old, Reginald was gone. He had found another woman, a younger woman, a woman without stretch marks and sleepless nights and a crying toddler. He left us with nothing, no money, no support, no explanation. I was 25 years old, alone, with a child to raise. But I did not give up. I could not give up. Kenton needed me. I found work as a cleaning lady during the day and a waitress at night. I survived on 3 or 4 hours of sleep. I ate scraps so Kenton could have full meals. I wore the same clothes for years so he could have new outfits for school. It was hard, harder than anything I had ever done. But I did it because I loved my son. I did it because I wanted him to have a better life than I had. And for a while, it seemed like my sacrifices were paying off. Kenton was a good student. He got good grades. He stayed out of trouble. He went to college on a partial scholarship. I took out loans and worked extra shifts to pay for the rest. When he graduated, I was the proudest mother in the world. My son had made it. He had broken the cycle of poverty. He had become something. Kenton got a job at a big company in the city. He started making good money. He bought nice clothes. He drove a nice car. He lived in a nice apartment. And then he met Nicolette. Nicolette Fontaine came from old money. Her family owned businesses and properties all over the state. She had grown up with servants and private schools and vacations in Europe. I could not understand what she saw in Kenton, not because my son was not worthy. He was handsome and smart and hardworking, but he came from nothing. And people like Nicolette usually married people like themselves. Later, I would understand. Nicolette did not love Kenton. She loved the idea of controlling him. She loved having a husband who would worship her. She loved having power over someone who had come from less than she had. But I did not see that at first. At first, I was just happy that my son had found someone. The first time Kenton brought Nicolette to meet me, I cooked a special dinner. Fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread, my best dishes. Nicolette barely touched the food. She looked around my small apartment with thinly disguised disgust. She made comments about the neighborhood being interesting and the furniture being vintage. But I told myself I was being too sensitive. I told myself she was just nervous about meeting her boyfriend's mother. After dinner, Kenton walked Nicolette to her car. I watched from the window as they talked. I could not hear what they were saying, but I saw Nicolette gesturing toward my building. Her face was twisted with something that looked like contempt. Kenton nodded, along with whatever she was saying. That should have been my first warning. Kenton and Nicolette got married 2 years later. It was a grand wedding at a country club owned by Nicolette's family. Over 300 guests attended. There were ice sculptures and champagne fountains and a 12-piece orchestra. I was there, of course, but I felt like a stranger. Nicolette's family barely acknowledged me. They looked through me like I was invisible. One of Nicolette's aunts actually asked me if I was part of the catering staff. During the reception, I sat alone at my table while Kenton and Nicolette made the rounds, greeting their wealthy guests. My son barely spent 5 minutes with me the entire night. When I tried to talk to him, Nicolette would appear and pull him away. Kenton, darling, the Hendersons want to congratulate us. Kenton, sweetheart, Daddy wants to introduce you to some investors. I went home early that night. I cried myself to sleep. After the wedding, things got worse. Kenton and Nicolette moved into a house paid for by her parents. A big, beautiful house in an exclusive neighborhood. I was not invited to the housewarming party. Kenton called less and less. When I called him, he always seemed distracted, rushed, like he had somewhere more important to be. When their first child was born, a boy named Preston, I found out through a Facebook post. Nicolette did not even tell me the baby had arrived. I had to see it on social media like a stranger. I went to visit them in the hospital. Nicolette barely let me hold my own grandchild. She hovered over me the entire time, making comments about how I was holding him wrong, how I needed to support his head better, how I should not breathe on him. After 15 minutes, she took the baby back. "Preston needs to rest now," she said. "You should go." I left with tears in my eyes. Over the next few years, I saw my grandchildren only a handful of times. Kenton and Nicolette had 3 children in total. Preston, then Meredith, then Sterling. I sent birthday gifts that were never acknowledged. I sent Christmas cards that were never answered. I invited them to my home for Thanksgiving and was always told they had other plans. I was being pushed out of my son's life, slowly but surely, and I did not know how to stop it. But I kept trying, I kept calling, I kept reaching out, I kept hoping that someday things would change. That hope is what kept me going. Until the day Kenton froze my account. That night, after Nicolette slammed the door in my face, I went home to an empty refrigerator and an empty bank account. I had $43 in my purse. That was all the cash I had in the world. I sat at my kitchen table and tried to think. What were my options? Who could I turn to? My mind went to my daughter, Simone. She was 3 years younger than Kenton. She lived in another state with her husband and 2 kids. We did not talk as often as I would have liked, but we were still close. At least I thought we were. I picked up the phone and called her. "Mama," Simone answered on the third ring. "Is everything okay? You never call this late." I broke down crying. I told her everything. The frozen account, Nicolette's cruel words, the door slammed in my face. When I finished, there was silence on the other end of the line. "Simone, are you still there?" "I am here, Mama." Her voice was hard, cold. "I am just not surprised." "What do you mean?" "I mean I have been warning you about Kenton for years. I told you he was changing. I told you Nicolette was poison, but you never listened. You always defended him. He is just busy. He is under a lot of pressure. He does not mean it." "He is my son, Simone. What was I supposed to do?" "You were supposed to protect yourself. You were supposed to see the truth." Simone's voice was rising. "And now look what happened. He stole your money, Mama. Your own son stole from you." I was sobbing now. I know, I was a fool. Simone was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "I am sorry, Mama. I did not mean to yell. I am just angry. Angry at Kenton. Angry at Nicolette. Angry at this whole situation." "What do I do, Simone? I have nothing, no money, no food, nothing." "I am going to wire you some money tomorrow, enough to get you through the next few weeks. And then I am going to come visit. We need to figure this out together." "Thank you, baby, thank you." "And Mama, do not go back to Kenton's house. Do not call him. Do not beg. That is exactly what they want. They want you desperate and humiliated." "What should I do instead?" Simone paused. When she spoke, there was steel in her voice. "You should fight back. You should show them that Zephyrine Blanchard is not someone to be messed with." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Fight back? How was I supposed to fight back? I was a 66-year-old woman with $43 to my name. My own son had betrayed me. His wife had humiliated me. What power did I have? But as I lay there in the darkness, something began to stir inside me. Something I had not felt in a long time. Anger. Not the helpless, weeping kind of anger. The fierce, burning kind. The kind that makes you stand up when everyone expects you to stay down. Kenton thought I would come crawling back. Nicolette thought I would beg. They were wrong. I did not know how yet. I did not know what I was going to do. But I knew one thing for certain. When my son came back, expecting to find his broken, begging mother, he was going to find something very different. He was going to freeze. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The next morning, I woke up with a new fire burning inside me. I was still hurt, still angry, still confused about how my own son could do this to me, but I was done crying. I was done feeling sorry for myself. It was time to take action. Simone had wired me $500, just as she promised. It was enough to buy groceries and pay my electric bill, enough to survive while I figured out my next move. But survival was not enough. I wanted justice. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a notepad. I started writing down everything I knew. Kenton had frozen my account. He needed my consent to unfreeze it, or so the bank said. But that account held over $120,000. Money I had saved over 40 years of hard work. Money I had earned through blood, sweat, and tears. That money was mine, and I was going to get it back. The first thing I did was call a lawyer. The lawyer's name was Delfina Rousseau. She was a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 50s who specialized in elder financial abuse. Yes, that is a real thing. There are lawyers who specifically help elderly people who have been robbed by their own family members. Sad, is it not, that there are enough cases like mine to keep lawyers busy? I met Delfina at her office downtown. It was a small but professional space, filled with law books and framed degrees. She listened as I told her my story. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and sighed. "Mrs. Blanchard, I am sorry to say that your situation is more common than you might think. Adult children taking advantage of elderly parents. It happens every day." "Can you help me?" I asked desperately. "I can try. The fact that Kenton is a joint account holder complicates things. Legally, he has as much right to that money as you do. My heart sank. But, Delphina continued, there are ways to fight this. If we can prove that Kenton added himself to the account through manipulation or fraud, we might be able to have his access revoked. How do we prove that? We need evidence, documentation, anything that shows Kenton pressured you into adding him to the account, anything that shows he acted in bad faith. I thought back to 3 years ago when Kenton had asked me to add his name to my account. He had been so convincing, so caring. He had said all the right things. But had he manipulated me? Had he planned this all along? There is something else, Delphina said. Even if we cannot prove fraud, we might be able to argue that Kenton has a fiduciary duty to act in your best interest. By freezing your account and leaving you with no access to your own money, he has breached that duty. What does that mean? It means we might be able to sue him, force him to unfreeze the account, maybe even get damages. Sue my own son. The thought made my stomach turn, but what choice did I have? How much will this cost? I asked. Delphina smiled kindly. I work on a sliding scale for cases like yours, and if we win, Kenton will be responsible for paying my fees. I took a deep breath. Let us do it. Over the next few weeks, Delphina and I built our case. She subpoenaed bank records showing that all the money in the account had come from my earnings. Social security payments, pension deposits, the small inheritance I received when my mother passed. Every penny was mine. She also subpoenaed records showing that Kenton had never contributed a single dollar to the account. He had only added his name. He had never deposited anything. He had only taken. Yes, taken. The records showed that over the past 3 years, Kenton had made several withdrawals from my account. Small amounts at first. A few hundred here, a few hundred there. But over time, the withdrawals grew larger. In total, Kenton had withdrawn over $18,000 from my account without my knowledge. When I saw those numbers, I felt sick. I did not know, I whispered to Delphina. I had no idea he was taking money. That is exactly what we need to prove, Delphina said. Kenton was not just a joint account holder. He was systematically stealing from you. And now, by freezing the account, he is trying to take everything. While Delphina worked on the legal case, Simone came to visit. She arrived on a Friday afternoon, driving up from her home in Virginia. When she walked through my door, I burst into tears. Mama, she said, wrapping her arms around me. It is okay, I am here now. Simone was everything Kenton was not. She was warm, caring, and devoted to her family. She called me every week. She sent pictures of my grandchildren. She visited whenever she could. I had always wondered how 2 children, raised by the same mother, could turn out so differently. Tell me everything, Simone said as we sat down in the living room. I told her about the lawyer, the bank records, the $18,000 Kenton had stolen over the years. Simone's face grew darker with each revelation. That snake, she muttered, that absolute snake. I do not understand how this happened, I said. Kenton used to be such a good boy. What changed? Simone shook her head. Nicolette happened. That woman poisoned him against everyone who ever loved him. She isolated him from the family. She filled his head with ideas about money and status and power. But Kenton made his own choices. He chose to steal from me. He chose to freeze my account. Nicolette did not force him. No, she did not force him, but she encouraged him. She enabled him, and he was too weak to resist. Simone took my hands in hers. Mama, I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you a long time ago. What is it? Simone took a deep breath. 2 years ago, Kenton came to me asking for money. He said he was in trouble. He said he needed $50,000 to cover some bad investments. He begged me not to tell you. My heart stopped. What did you do? I said no. I told him I did not have that kind of money, which was true. But I also told him to stop living beyond his means, to stop trying to keep up with Nicolette's family. What did he say? He got angry. He said I was jealous of his success. He said I did not understand what it was like to be married to someone from a wealthy family. The expectations, the pressure. Simon's eyes were filled with pain. And then he said something that I will never forget. He said, "Mama has money, she does not need it. She is old. She is going to die soon anyway. That money should be mine." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. He said that. My son said that about me. Simone nodded. "I am sorry, Mama. I should have told you then. I should have warned you. But I was in shock. I could not believe Kenton would say something so horrible." I sat in silence, trying to process what I had just heard. My son had been planning this for years. He had been waiting for me to die so he could take my money. And when I did not die fast enough, he decided to take it anyway. That night, Simone and I talked for hours. We talked about Kenton and how he had changed. We talked about Nicolette and her toxic influence. We talked about the lawsuit and what might happen next. But mostly, we talked about healing. "Mama, you need to let go of the guilt," Simone said. "You did nothing wrong. You were a good mother. You sacrificed everything for us. The fact that Kenton turned out this way is not your fault." "But I must have done something wrong. I must have failed him somehow." "No, you raised 2 children. One turned out grateful and loving. One turned out selfish and cruel. That is not about you, Mama. That is about the choices they made." She squeezed my hands. "Kenton chose to marry a woman who despised his family. Kenton chose to steal from you. Kenton chose to freeze your account and leave you with nothing. Those were his choices, not yours." I wiped tears from my eyes. "When did you become so wise, Simone?" She smiled. "I learned from the best." 2 weeks later, Delphina called me with news. "Mrs. Blanchard, we have filed the lawsuit. Kenton has been served." My heart started racing. What happens now? Now we wait. Kenton has 30 days to respond. He can either settle, which would mean unfreezing your account and possibly paying damages, or he can fight, which would mean going to court. What do you think he will do? Delphina paused. Honestly, I think he will fight. People like Kenton, people who feel entitled to other people's money, they do not give up easily. But we have a strong case. The bank records alone are damning. What about the $18,000 he stole? We are including that in the lawsuit. If we win, Kenton will have to pay back every penny, plus interest, plus your legal fees. I let out a long breath. Thank you, Delphina, for everything. Do not thank me yet. The hard part is just beginning. She was right. The hard part was just beginning. 3 days after Kenton was served with the lawsuit, my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. "Hello?" "Mama," it was Kenton's voice. "We need to talk." My hands started shaking. I had not heard my son's voice in weeks. Part of me wanted to hang up. Part of me wanted to scream at him. But I forced myself to stay calm. "Talk about what Kenton." "This lawsuit, it is ridiculous. You are suing your own son. Over money." "You froze my account, Kenton. You left me with nothing. What was I supposed to do?" "I was trying to teach you a lesson. You were always meddling, always interfering. Nicolette and I needed space. So you stole my money. You took $18,000 without telling me." There was silence on the other end. That was different. We had expenses. The kids' school fees, the mortgage, we needed help." "Then why did you not ask me?" "Because you would have said no. You always say no to Nicolette. You never liked her." I laughed bitterly. "I wonder why, Kenton. Maybe because she treats me like garbage. Maybe because she turned my son against me." "That is not fair, Mama. Nicolette loves me. She is just protective." "Protective?" I could not believe what I was hearing. "She told me to beg, Kenton. She slammed the door in my face. She said you were waiting for me to die so you could take my inheritance." Silence again. "She did not mean it like that." "Then how did she mean it? Explain it to me, Kenton. Because from where I am standing, it looks like my son has chosen his wife over his mother. It looks like my son would rather see me starve than stand up to his wife." "That is not true." "Then prove it. Unfreeze my account. Give me back my money. And maybe, just maybe, I will consider dropping this lawsuit." Another long silence. Then Kenton spoke, and his words chilled me to the bone. "I cannot do that, Mama. Nicolette would never allow it." "Nicolette would never allow it." "Kenton, listen to yourself. You are a grown man. You have the power to do the right thing, but you are letting your wife control you." "You do not understand, Mama. Nicolette's family has connections. If I go against her, they could destroy me, my career, my reputation, everything." "And what about your mother, Kenton? What about the woman who raised you, who sacrificed everything for you? Do I mean nothing to you?" Kenton's voice was barely a whisper now. "I am sorry, Mama. I am truly sorry, but I cannot help you." He hung up. I sat there, holding the phone, feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my life. My son was not going to help me. He was too weak, too controlled, too far gone. But something else was happening too, something I had not expected. I was getting stronger. Every betrayal, every cruelty, every harsh word was feeding a fire inside me. I was not the broken old woman Kenton and Nicolette expected me to be. I was becoming something else. A warrior. The lawsuit proceeded. Kenton hired an expensive lawyer, probably paid for by Nicolette's family. They filed motion after motion, trying to delay the case, trying to wear me down. But I did not give up. Delphina matched them move for move. She was brilliant, relentless, and she believed in my case. 3 months after the lawsuit was filed, we got a break. Delphina called me, excitement in her voice. "Mrs. Blanchard, you need to come to my office. Right now." "What happened?" "Just come. You need to see this for yourself." I drove to her office as fast as I could. When I arrived, Delphina was grinning. "We found something," she said. "Something big." She handed me a stack of documents. "These are financial records from Kenton's company, records he never wanted anyone to see." I looked at the papers. My eyes widened. He has been embezzling from his employer, over $300,000 over the past 5 years. He used some of that money to fund his lifestyle, the big house, the fancy cars, the private schools for the kids. I could not believe what I was seeing. "But there is more," Delphina continued. "Some of that embezzled money was deposited into your joint account, which means Kenton was using your account to launder stolen funds." My blood ran cold. I had no idea. I never knew. "Of course you did not, but Kenton knew, and now we have leverage." "What do you mean?" Delphina's eyes sparkled with triumph. "I mean that Kenton is not just facing a civil lawsuit anymore. He is facing criminal charges, embezzlement, fraud, money laundering. If this information goes to the authorities, Kenton could go to prison for a very long time." She leaned forward. "Mrs. Blanchard, your son has 2 choices. He can settle this lawsuit, give you back every penny, and pray that we do not turn this information over to the police. Or he can fight, lose everything, and spend the next 10 years behind bars." I stared at the documents in my hands. My son was a thief, not just from me, but from his own company. He had been living a lie for years. "What do we do now?" I asked. Delphina smiled. "Now we wait for Kenton to come crawling back. And when he does, we make sure he knows exactly who he is dealing with." That night, I lay in bed, thinking about everything that had happened. My son was a criminal. My daughter-in-law was a monster. My life savings had been frozen and used for money laundering. It was almost too much to bear. But underneath the pain, something else was growing, something that felt a lot like power. Kenton had underestimated me. He had thought I was just a weak old woman who would beg for scraps, but he was wrong. I had evidence now, evidence that could destroy him, evidence that could send him to prison. And when he came back, expecting to find his broken, desperate mother, he was going to freeze. Just like the title said. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The phone call came 3 days later. I was sitting in my living room, drinking tea and watching the evening news when my phone buzzed. It was Kenton. I let it ring 4 times before I answered. "Hello, Kenton." "Mama." His voice was different now. Gone was the defensive, self-righteous tone from our last conversation. This time he sounded scared, desperate, like a man who had just seen his whole world crumbling. "I assume you got the letter from my lawyer," I said calmly. Delphina had sent Kenton a formal letter 2 days ago. It outlined everything we had discovered: the embezzlement, the money laundering, the criminal charges he could face if this information went to the authorities. The letter also included a settlement offer. Unfreeze my account immediately. Pay back the $18,000 he had stolen. Pay my legal fees. And sign a document admitting what he had done. If he refused, we would go to court, and we would share our evidence with the police. "Mama, please," Kenton said. "You cannot do this. You cannot destroy my life like this." "Destroy your life?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Kenton, you destroyed your own life. You stole from your employer. You stole from your mother. You froze my account and left me with nothing. Those were your choices, not mine." I was desperate. Nicolette's family expected so much from us. The house, the cars, the private schools, I could not keep up. I did not know what else to do. "You could have been honest. You could have lived within your means. You could have asked for help." "I was ashamed, Mama. I did not want you to know that I was failing." "So instead, you stole from me. You treated me like I was already dead. That was better than asking for help." Silence on the other end. "Mama, please, I am begging you. Do not turn this information over to the police. I will go to prison. My children will grow up without a father. Please." I closed my eyes. Part of me, the part that still remembered the sweet little boy who used to sit on my lap and call me his best friend, wanted to give in, wanted to protect him, wanted to make everything okay. But another part of me, the part that had been lied to and stolen from and humiliated, knew that I could not let him off the hook. Not again. "Kenton, do you know what the worst part of all this is?" "What?" "The worst part is not the money. It is not the frozen account. It is not even the $18,000 you stole." I took a deep breath. "The worst part is that you never once apologized. You never once said you were sorry for what you did to me. You just made excuses, blamed Nicolette, blamed your circumstances, blamed everyone except yourself." Kenton was quiet. "You want me to save you, Kenton? Then start by being honest. Start by taking responsibility. Start by admitting that what you did was wrong." More silence. Then finally, Kenton spoke. His voice was barely a whisper. "I am sorry, Mama. I am so sorry. I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed you. And I know that nothing I say can make up for what I did." I felt tears stinging my eyes, but I did not let them fall. "That is a start, Kenton, but words are not enough. Actions are what matter now." "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to sign the settlement agreement. I want my money back, all of it, and I want you to face the consequences of what you did to your employer." "But I will lose everything. My job, my house, maybe even Nicolette." "And that is your problem, Kenton, not mine. You made these choices. Now you have to live with them." I could hear him crying on the other end of the line. My son, the man who had stolen from me and left me with nothing, was crying. Part of me wanted to comfort him. Part of me wanted to tell him everything would be okay. But I had spent too many years protecting Kenton from the consequences of his actions. I had made excuses for him. I had covered for him. I had loved him even when he did not deserve it. And look where that had gotten me. "Sign the agreement, Kenton," I said firmly. "You have until Friday. After that, I am going to the police." I hung up. The next 2 days were the longest of my life. I did not hear from Kenton. I did not hear from Delphina. I just waited, wondering what would happen next. Simone called me every few hours to check in. "How are you holding up, Mama?" "I am okay, just anxious." "He will sign. He has no choice." "I hope you are right." "I know I am right. Kenton is many things, but he is not stupid. He knows that going to prison would destroy him. He will take the deal." I wished I shared her confidence. On Friday morning, Delphina called. "Mrs. Blanchard, I have news." My heart started pounding. What happened? "Kenton signed the settlement agreement. He is unfreezing your account today. The $18,000 will be deposited by the end of the week, and he is paying your legal fees in full." I let out a breath I did not know I had been holding. What about the embezzlement? Is he going to face charges? That is the interesting part. Kenton has agreed to turn himself in to his employer. He is going to confess to the embezzlement and offer to pay back everything he stole. And they will not press charges. That depends on the company. But Kenton is hoping that by coming forward voluntarily and offering full restitution, they will agree to handle it quietly. No police, no prosecution. And if they do not agree, then Kenton goes to prison. But that is his problem now, not yours. I sat down heavily in my kitchen chair. It is over. It is over, Mrs. Blanchard. You won. That evening, Simone and I celebrated with a home-cooked dinner. I made all my favorite dishes: fried catfish, black-eyed peas, cornbread, sweet potato pie. We ate and laughed and talked late into the night. "I am so proud of you, Mama," Simone said. "You stood up for yourself, you fought back, and you won." "I could not have done it without you, without Delphina, without everyone who supported me." "Yes, you could have. You are the strongest woman I know, Mama. You always have been." I smiled. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. But the peace did not last long. 3 days later, there was a knock at my door. I was not expecting anyone. Simone had gone back to Virginia. Delphina was handling the final paperwork at her office. I could not imagine who would be visiting. I opened the door. And there was Kenton. My son stood on my doorstep, looking like a shadow of the man he used to be. His eyes were red and swollen. His clothes were wrinkled. He had not shaved in days. "Mama," he said, "can I come in?" I stared at him for a long moment. Part of me wanted to slam the door in his face, just like Nicolette had done to me. Part of me wanted to scream at him for everything he had put me through. But another part of me, the mother part, could not turn away my child. "Come in," I said quietly. Kenton sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I had cried over my frozen account just months ago. He looked around the small apartment like he was seeing it for the first time. "I forgot how cozy this place is," he murmured. "It is home," I said. "It is all I need." Silence stretched between us. Finally, Kenton spoke. "Mama, I need to tell you what happened, the whole story. You deserve to know the truth." "I am listening." Kenton took a deep breath. "When I married Nicolette, I thought I had made it. I thought I was finally good enough for her, good enough for her family, good enough for the world." He shook his head. "But I was never good enough for them, no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried. Nicolette's family always looked down on me. They called me the help's son behind my back. They made jokes about my clothes, my accent, my education." I felt a pang of sympathy despite myself. I knew what it was like to be looked down on. "Nicolette was different at first," Kenton continued. "Or at least I thought she was. She made me feel special, important, like I belonged." "What changed?" "She got pregnant with Preston, and suddenly everything was about the baby, about appearances, about making sure the Fontaine family was proud of us." He looked at me with hollow eyes. "That is when the pressure started. We had to have the right house, the right car, the right clothes, the right schools for the kids. Everything had to be perfect." "But you could not afford it." "No, I could not. My salary was good, but it was not Fontaine-level good. So I started cutting corners, borrowing from credit cards, taking out loans." "And stealing from your employer." Kenton flinched. "Yes, and stealing from my employer. It started small, a few hundred here and there. I told myself I would pay it back, but the hole kept getting bigger, and I kept digging deeper." "Why did you not tell me, Kenton? I would have helped you." "How could I tell you, Mama? How could I admit that I was a failure, that everything I had worked for was built on lies?" He buried his face in his hands. "And then Nicolette found out. about the embezzlement, about the debt, about everything. What did she do? She was furious. She said I had humiliated her. She said I had put her family's reputation at risk. She said I needed to fix it or she would leave me. So she told you to take my money. Kenton nodded slowly. She said you had savings. She said you did not need it, she said. He stopped. She said what, Kenton? His voice was barely a whisper. She said you were old, that you would die soon anyway, that the money should be ours. I closed my eyes. Hearing those words confirmed, hearing that my own son had agreed to such a cruel plan, was like a knife in my heart. And you agreed with her, I said. I did not know what else to do. I was desperate, scared. I thought if I could just get your money, I could pay off the debts. I could fix everything. I could make Nicolette happy. And what about making me happy, Kenton? What about taking care of the mother who raised you? Tears were streaming down his face now. I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you, and I will never forgive myself for that. He reached across the table and took my hand. Mama, I am so sorry. I am sorry for everything. For the money, for the lies, for pushing you away, for letting Nicolette treat you like garbage, for all of it. I looked at my son, my firstborn, the child I had sacrificed everything for. And I saw, for the first time in years, the boy I used to know. The boy who used to bring me flowers from the garden. The boy who used to tell me I was his best friend. The boy who used to believe that family was everything. That boy was still in there somewhere, buried under years of bad choices and toxic influences, but still there. What do you want, Kenton? I asked quietly. I want to make things right. I want to earn back your trust. I want to be your son again. What about Nicolette? Kenton's face darkened. Nicolette left me. I blinked. What? When I signed the settlement agreement, she found out. She was furious. She said I had betrayed her by giving you back the money. She said I was weak, pathetic. He laughed bitterly. And then she told me she wanted a divorce. She said she had already called her lawyers. She is going to take everything. The house, the cars, the kids. The children. She's going to take my grandchildren. She is going to try, but Mama, Kenton's voice cracked. I do not care about the house or the cars. I just want my kids, and I want my mother back. I sat in silence for a long time. My son had lost everything. His wife, his home, his reputation. All because he had made terrible choices and followed a toxic woman down a path of destruction. Part of me wanted to say, I told you so. Part of me wanted to remind him of all the warnings I had given, all the signs I had seen, all the times I had tried to tell him that Nicolette was poison. But what good would that do now? Kenton, I said finally, I am not going to pretend that everything is okay. You hurt me deeply. You betrayed my trust. You stole from me. And you let your wife treat me like I was nothing. He nodded, tears still streaming down his face. But you are still my son, and I will always love you, no matter what. I squeezed his hand. If you truly want to make things right, then you have a long road ahead of you. You need to face the consequences of your actions. You need to rebuild your life from scratch. And you need to prove, through your actions, that you have changed. I will, Mama, I promise. I will do whatever it takes. And the children, Preston, Meredith, and Sterling. I am going to fight for them. I am going to be the father they deserve, even if Nicolette tries to take them away. I nodded slowly. Then we fight together. As a family. That night, after Kenton left, I sat alone in my kitchen. So much had changed in such a short time. My son had lost everything. His wife was gone. His career was in ruins. His life was in shambles. But for the first time in years, I felt hope. Kenton was broken, but broken things can be fixed. And maybe, just maybe, this crisis was the wake-up call he needed. I thought about the title of this story. My son blocked my account, waiting for me to beg. When he came back, he froze. Kenton had expected me to beg. He had expected me to come crawling back, desperate and broken. But I had not begged. I had fought. I had stood up for myself. And when Kenton finally came back, he found something he did not expect. A mother who was stronger than ever. But the story was not over yet. Because 3 weeks later, something happened that none of us saw coming. Nicolette made her move. It started with a phone call from Kenton. "Mama, I need you to come to the courthouse. Right now." "Why? What is happening?" Nicolette filed for emergency custody of the children. The hearing is in 2 hours, and she has submitted evidence that I am an unfit father. My blood ran cold. What kind of evidence? I do not know, but her lawyers say they have witnesses, documents, proof that I am dangerous and should not be allowed near my own children. That is ridiculous. You would never hurt those children. I know, but Nicolette is willing to lie. She is willing to do whatever it takes to destroy me. I grabbed my purse and my keys. I am on my way. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I drove to the courthouse, faster than I had ever driven in my life. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles ached. My heart was pounding in my chest. My mind was racing with 1,000 terrible thoughts. Nicolette was trying to take my grandchildren, those precious bobbies I had barely been allowed to see, those children who had been kept from me for years because their mother thought I was beneath them. And now she was claiming that Kenton, their own father, was dangerous, that he was unfit to be around them. It was a lie, a vicious, calculated lie, and I was not going to let her get away with it. When I arrived at the courthouse, Kenton was waiting outside. He looked terrible. His face was pale. His eyes were red. He was packing back and forth like a caged animal. "Mama, thank God you are here. What is happening? Tell me everything." Kenton took a shaky breath. Nicolette's lawyers submitted a motion this morning. They claim I have a history of violent behavior. They say I threatened Nicolette and the children. They have witnesses who are willing to testify that I am dangerous. That is absurd. You have never been violent in your life. I know, but Nicolette's family has money. They have connections. They can make people say whatever they want. What about your lawyer? What does she say? Kenton shook his head. My lawyer is good, but she is not prepared for this. We did not know this was coming. Nicolette blindsided us. I felt rage building inside me. Nicolette had planned this perfectly. She had waited until Kenton was at his weakest, until he had lost everything, and then she had struck. Where is the hearing? I asked. Courtroom 4B. It starts in 30 minutes. I took Kenton's arm. Let us go. We are going to fight this together. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Just a few rows of wooden benches facing a raised platform where the judge would sit. A court reporter was setting up her equipment in the corner. A bailiff stood near the door. Nicolette was already there, sitting at a table on the left side of the room. She was dressed in an expensive black suit, her hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She looked calm, confident, like a woman who knew she was going to win. Beside her sat a team of 3 lawyers, all of them in expensive suits, all of them looking like sharks ready to attack. On the right side of the room, Kenton sat with his lawyer, a young woman named Elise Carter. She was clearly outmatched, 1 lawyer against 3, David against Goliath. I slid into the bench behind Kenton and squeezed his shoulder. I am here, baby. No matter what happens, I am here. Kenton nodded, but I could see the fear in his eyes. The judge entered the courtroom. She was a black woman in her 60s, with silver hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. Her name was Judge Henrietta Dawson, according to the nameplate on her bench. This court is now in session, the bailiff announced. The matter of Fontaine versus Blanchard, emergency custody hearing. Judge Dawson looked at both tables over the rim of her glasses. I have reviewed the motions submitted by both parties. Mrs. Fontaine, you are seeking emergency sole custody of the 3 minor children. You claim that Mr. Blanchard poses a danger to the children. Is that correct? Nicolette's lead lawyer, a slick-looking man in his 50s, stood up. That is correct, Your Honor. We have evidence that Mr. Blanchard has a history of violent and erratic behavior. We have witnesses who will testify to this. And we have documents showing that Mr. Blanchard has engaged in criminal activity, specifically embezzlement from his employer. Judge Dawson raised an eyebrow. Mr. Blanchard, how do you respond to these allegations? Elise Carter stood up nervously. Your Honor, my client categorically denies these accusations. Mr. Blanchard has never been violent toward his wife or children. He has no criminal record. And while it is true that there were issues at his former employer, those matters have been resolved through restitution and are not relevant to his fitness as a parent. The embezzlement is absolutely relevant, Nicolette's lawyer interjected. It shows a pattern of deception and dishonesty. How can we trust a man who stole from his employer to take care of 3 young children? That is enough, Judge Dawson said firmly. We will hear testimony from both sides before I make any rulings. Mrs. Fontaine, call your first witness. Nicolette's lawyers called 3 witnesses. The first was a neighbor from their old neighborhood, a woman named Patricia Hollingsworth. She testified that she had heard shouting coming from the Blanchard house on multiple occasions. She claimed she had once seen Kenton slam the front door so hard that the windows shook. Did you ever witness Mr. Blanchard physically harm anyone? Elise Carter asked during cross-examination. Well, no, but the shouting was very concerning. So you never actually saw any violence? No, but... Thank you, no further questions. The second witness was Nicolette's sister, a woman named Giselle Fontaine. She testified that Kenton had once raised his voice at a family gathering and that she had felt threatened by his behavior. Did Mr. Blanchard touch you or anyone else during this incident? Elise asked. No, but the look in his eyes was very scary. So he looked at you in a way you did not like. That is your testimony. He was aggressive, but he did not touch anyone. No. Thank you. The third witness was the most damaging, a man named Franklin Reeves, who claimed to be a former colleague of Kenton's. I worked with Kenton for 3 years, Franklin testified. He had a terrible temper. He would yell at people in meetings. He once threw a stapler across the room. Did he ever threaten you personally? Nicolette's lawyer asked. Yes, he told me once that if I did not stay out of his way, I would regret it. Kenton leaned over to Elise. That is a lie. I never said that. I barely knew that man. Elise nodded and stood up for cross-examination. Mr. Reeves, can you describe your relationship with Mr. Blanchard? We worked in the same department. Did you work together on any projects? Not directly. So you were not close colleagues? We were in the same building. I see. And this alleged threat, did anyone else witness it? Franklin hesitated. I do not remember. You do not remember if anyone else was present when Mr. Blanchard supposedly threatened you. It was a long time ago. Were there any written records of this incident? Any HR complaints? Any documentation at all? No. So we have only your word, the word of a man who barely knew my client. I know what I heard. Elise smiled thinly. No further questions. After the witnesses finished, Judge Dawson looked at Kenton's table. Mr. Blanchard, do you have any witnesses to present? Elise looked worried. Your Honor, we were not given adequate time to prepare. This motion was filed just this morning. We would request a continuance to gather witnesses and evidence. Nicolette's lawyer jumped up. Your Honor, the safety of 3 children is at stake. We cannot delay this matter. The court must act now to protect these innocent victims. Judge Dawson frowned. I am inclined to grant a brief continuance. However, given the serious nature of the allegations, I am also inclined to issue a temporary order limiting Mr. Blanchard's access to the children until a full hearing can be held. My heart sank. A temporary order. That meant Kenton would not be able to see his children for weeks, maybe months. Kenton's face crumpled. I could see him breaking right in front of me. And then, before I knew what I was doing, I stood up. Your Honor, may I speak? The whole courtroom turned to look at me. Judge Dawson frowned. "And who are you?" "My name is Zephyrine Blanchard. I am Kenton's mother, and I have something to say." "Mrs. Blanchard, this is a legal proceeding. You are not a party to this case." "I understand that, Your Honor, but those are my grandchildren we are talking about, and everything Nicolette's witnesses have said is a lie." Nicolette's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. This woman has no standing to address the court." Judge Dawson held up her hand. "I will decide what is irregular in my courtroom." She looked at me with curious eyes. "Mrs. Blanchard, I am going to give you 2 minutes. Make them count." I stepped out from behind the bench and walked toward the front of the courtroom. My legs were shaking. My voice was trembling, but I was not going to back down. "Your Honor, I have known my son his entire life. I raised him alone after his father left us when Kenton was just 3 years old. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. I sacrificed everything so he could have a better life." I looked at Kenton, who was watching me with tears in his eyes. "My son is not perfect. He has made mistakes, big mistakes. He got involved with the wrong woman. He let her influence him. He did things he should not have done." I turned to look at Nicolette. She was glaring at me with pure hatred. "But my son is not violent. He has never raised a hand to anyone. He is a good father who loves his children more than anything in this world." I turned back to Judge Dawson. "Nicolette Fontaine is lying. She has been lying since the day she married my son. She isolated him from his family. She encouraged him to steal from me. She treated me like garbage because I did not come from money." I pulled out my phone. "And I have proof." Nicolette's lawyer jumped up. "Your Honor, this is outrageous. We cannot allow unverified evidence to be introduced in this manner." "What kind of proof, Mrs. Blanchard?" Judge Dawson asked, ignoring the lawyer. "Text messages, Your Honor. Messages from Nicolette to my son. Messages where she told him to freeze my bank account. Messages where she said I was old and should die so they could take my money. Messages where she called me horrible names and told Kenton to cut me out of his life." I walked forward and handed my phone to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. Judge Dawson scrolled through the messages. Her face grew darker with each one. "Mrs. Fontaine," the judge said slowly, "is this your phone number?" Nicolette's face went pale. Those messages are taken out of context." "Out of context," Judge Dawson read aloud from the screen. "Your mother is a parasite. She needs to die so we can finally have her money. Block her account and make her beg." Gasps filled the courtroom. "How exactly is that out of context, Mrs. Fontaine?" Nicolette's lawyer tried to intervene. "Your Honor, we object to this evidence. It has not been properly authenticated. It could be fabricated." "Then we will have it authenticated," Judge Dawson said firmly. "And in the meantime, I am very concerned about the character of the person seeking custody of 3 young children." She looked at Nicolette with cold eyes. "Mrs. Fontaine, you have accused your husband of being violent and dangerous. Yet I have seen no credible evidence to support those claims. What I have seen is evidence that you encouraged financial abuse of an elderly woman, that you manipulated your husband into criminal activity, that you treated his mother with cruelty and contempt." Nicolette was shaking now. Her perfect composure was crumbling. "Your Honor, I can explain. You will have your chance to explain at the full hearing. But for now, I am denying your motion for emergency custody." Relief flooded through me. "Furthermore," Judge Dawson continued, "I am ordering a full investigation into the allegations on both sides. A social worker will visit both homes. Both parents will submit to psychological evaluations. And until the investigation is complete, custody will remain joint." Nicolette's lawyer sputtered. "Your Honor, surely." "I have made my ruling, Counselor. This hearing is adjourned." The gavel came down, and Nicolette's scheme crumbled to dust. Outside the courtroom, Kenton grabbed me in the tightest hug I had ever felt. "Mama, you saved me. You saved my children. I told you we would fight this together." Kenton pulled back, and looked at me with wonder in his eyes. Those text messages, I did not even know you had them. I saved everything, Kenton. Every cruel word she ever sent you. Every plan she ever made. I knew someday it might be important. You are incredible, Mama. I do not deserve you. No, you do not. I smiled despite myself. But you are my son, and I will always fight for you. The full custody hearing took place 3 weeks later. In those 3 weeks, a lot happened. The social worker visited both homes. She found that Kenton's small apartment was clean, safe, and appropriate for children. She found that Nicolette's mansion was impressive, but cold. The children seemed nervous and anxious when interviewed at their mother's home. They seemed relaxed and happy when interviewed at their father's apartment. The psychological evaluations were even more revealing. Kenton was found to be a loving, devoted father who had made mistakes, but was genuinely committed to changing. The psychologist noted that he showed remorse for his past actions and a sincere desire to be a better person. Nicolette was found to be narcissistic, manipulative, and emotionally abusive. The psychologist noted that she showed no empathy for others and seemed to view her children as possessions rather than people. When the full hearing took place, the results were not even close. Judge Dawson awarded primary custody to Kenton. Nicolette was given supervised visitation only. She would be allowed to see her children, but only with a social worker present. When the ruling was announced, Nicolette screamed, "This is not fair. Those children belong to me. I am their mother." "You are their mother," Judge Dawson agreed. "But you are also a manipulator and an abuser, and until you can demonstrate genuine change, you will not be alone with those children." Security had to escort Nicolette out of the courtroom. As she passed me, she stopped and glared at me with pure hatred. "This is your fault," she hissed. "You ruined everything." I looked at her calmly. "No, Nicolette, you ruined everything. I just made sure you faced the consequences." She was dragged away, still screaming. After the hearing, our family began to heal. It was not easy. It was not fast. But slowly, day by day, we started to rebuild what had been broken. Kenton moved into a small but comfortable apartment near my home. He got a new job, a modest position at a small company that was willing to give him a second chance. He worked hard. He came home every night. He was present for his children in a way he had never been before. Preston, Meredith, and Sterling came to stay with him every weekend. At first, they were shy and uncertain. They had been taught by their mother to look down on people like me, to see their father's family as inferior. But children are resilient, and they respond to love. I cooked for them. I told them stories. I taught them how to play the card games my mother had taught me. I showed them what family was supposed to look like. Within a few months, they were calling me Grandma Zeffie. They would run to hug me whenever they arrived. They would beg to stay longer at the end of each visit. "I like it here," little Sterling told me one day. He was only 5 years old, the youngest of the three. "It is warm here." "Warm?" I asked. "Yeah, Mommy's house is cold, but your house is warm." I hugged him tight. "You are always welcome here, baby. This is your home, too." Simone came to visit often. She and Kenton had a lot of healing to do. There were years of hurt and resentment between them, but slowly they started to reconnect. One Thanksgiving, we all gathered at my small apartment. Kenton, Simone, her husband, her children, my 3 grandchildren from Kenton. The apartment was crowded. There was barely room to move, but it was the fullest my home had ever been. We ate together. We laughed together. We told stories and played games and enjoyed each other's company. At one point, Kenton stood up and raised his glass. "I want to make a toast," he said. Everyone fell silent. A year ago, I was the worst version of myself. I had stolen from my mother. I had alienated my sister. I had let a toxic woman control my life. I had lost everything that mattered. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. But my mother never gave up on me, even when I froze her bank account and left her with nothing, even when I treated her like she did not exist. even when I sided with a woman who despised her. He wiped his eyes. She fought for me. She stood up in a courtroom and saved my children. She loved me when I did not deserve to be loved. He raised his glass higher. To my mother, the strongest woman I have ever known, the woman who taught me that family is not about blood or money or status. Family is about love, unconditional love, the kind of love that never gives up. Everyone raised their glasses. To Mama, Simone said. To Grandma Zeffie, the children chimed in. I sat there, tears streaming down my face, surrounded by my family. My real family, the people who loved me, the people who would never leave me. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you all. A year later, Kenton remarried. Her name was Beatrice. She was a kind, gentle woman who worked as a teacher at the local elementary school. She was nothing like Nicolette. She was warm where Nicolette was cold. She was humble where Nicolette was arrogant. She was loving where Nicolette was cruel. Beatrice loved the children like they were her own. She loved Kenton with a pure, honest love, and she loved me. Mrs. Blanchard, she said to me the first time we met, Kenton has told me so much about you. I just want you to know that I have nothing but respect for you. You raised an incredible man. He made mistakes, I said honestly. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after, and Kenton has done everything right since the moment he came back to you. I hugged her then. I knew she was the one. The wedding was small, just family and close friends. It was held in a little church near my apartment. No ice sculptures, no champagne fountains, no 12-piece orchestra. Just love. During the reception, Kenton came to sit beside me. Mama, can I tell you something? Of course, baby. When I froze your account, I was expecting you to come begging. I was expecting you to cry and plead and beg me to give you back your money. He shook his head. But you did not beg. You fought. You stood up for yourself. You showed me that you were stronger than I ever imagined. He took my hand. And when I came back, when I finally faced what I had done, I froze. I literally could not move, because I realized that I had underestimated you my entire life. I thought you were weak because you were poor. I thought you were powerless because you did not have money or connections. He looked at me with wonder. But you are the most powerful person I have ever met, Mama. Not because of money, not because of status, but because of your heart, your strength, your love. I squeezed his hand. I learned a long time ago that power is not about what you have. It is about what you are willing to fight for. What were you willing to fight for? You, baby. I was willing to fight for you, for my grandchildren, for my family. Kenton hugged me. I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby, always. Today, 5 years have passed since that terrible day when my account was frozen. So much has changed, so much has healed. Kenton is now a regional manager at his company. He has rebuilt his career from scratch. He is respected by his colleagues. He is loved by his employees. He has proven that people can change if they are willing to do the work. Beatrice gave him 2 more children, a boy named after my late father, Ezekiel, and a girl named after me, Zephyrine. Little Zeffie, they call her. My grandchildren are growing up strong and healthy. Preston is 15 now, a tall, handsome young man who wants to be a lawyer. Meredith is 12, a brilliant girl who loves science and wants to be a doctor. Sterling is 10, a kind, gentle boy who loves animals and wants to be a veterinarian. They all come to visit me every Sunday. We eat together. We laugh together. We tell stories and play games and enjoy each other's company. Nicolette is still around somewhere. She remarried a few years ago to another wealthy man. I hear she is still the same, still cold, still manipulative, still unable to truly love anyone except herself. The children see her occasionally, but they do not enjoy those visits. They come back quiet and subdued. It takes them a day or 2 to warm up again. But they always warm up, because they know they have a family that loves them, a family that will always be there for them. Last month, on my 71st birthday, my whole family gathered at my apartment. It was cramped and loud and chaotic. Children were running everywhere. Adults were talking over each other. The kitchen was a mess of pots and pans and delicious food. It was perfect. After dinner, Kenton stood up to make a speech. "Mama, 5 years ago I did something terrible. I froze your account. I waited for you to beg. I expected you to come crawling back to me." He shook his head. "But you did not beg. You did not crawl. You stood up. You fought back. You showed me what true strength looks like." He raised his glass. "And when I finally came back, expecting to find a broken, desperate woman, I froze. Because I found something I did not expect. I found a warrior, a queen, a mother who would never stop fighting for her family." Everyone raised their glasses. "To Mama, the strongest woman we know, the heart of our family, the reason we are all here today." "To Mama," everyone echoed. I looked around at my family, my children, my grandchildren, my daughters-in-law, my son-in-law, all the people who loved me. And I smiled. "Thank you," I said. "Thank you for being my family. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for giving me the greatest gift anyone could ever receive." "What gift is that, Grandma?" little Zeffie asked. I picked her up and held her close. "You, baby, all of you, that is the greatest gift. If you are watching this story, I want you to know something. Life will hurt you. People you love will betray you. Family members will disappoint you. You will be knocked down more times than you can count. But you do not have to stay down. You can fight back. You can stand up. You can show the world that you are stronger than anyone ever imagined." When my son blocked my account, he was waiting for me to beg. He expected me to be weak and desperate and broken. But I was none of those things. And when he came back, he froze, because he realized that he had underestimated the power of a mother's love, the strength of a woman who refuses to give up, the resilience of someone who has been knocked down but keeps getting back up. That is the lesson of my story. That is the message I want you to take with you. Never beg, never give up, never let anyone make you feel like you are less than you are. You are strong, you are powerful, you are worthy of love and respect. And anyone who does not see that, they are the ones who will freeze when they finally realize the truth. Thank you for watching until the end. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for listening to my story. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to this channel. Press that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Press the like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. I want to know who is here with me. I want to see how far this story travels. Until next time, take care of yourselves, love your families, stand up for yourselves, and never ever let anyone tell you that you are not enough.